Hi, and welcome to the Clarity Challenge. Our conversation starter for tonight is quite an interesting one. I can't wait to get into it. But just before then, when people come to you and they're like, you can't know everything about a person before you get married to them. Oftentimes, when I hear that kind of statement, what comes to my mind is someone trying to justify some kind of acts of laziness or what? Listen, listen. It's like telling somebody when you drink water, you will urinate at some point. It's a statement of fact. But you see, nobody said you got to know everything about a person before you get married to them. Nobody said that. Some of the guys you want to know some stuff about don't even know anything about themselves. How in the world are you going to know everything about a person? About a person who doesn't even know everything about himself. That's not what we're talking about. Listen, what we're talking about is that there are fundamentals, there are inevitables, there are things that are of overriding importance that you got to know before you settle in for a permanent relationship with a person. You can't go into a relationship with somebody that is permanent and you don't know certain fundamentals, certain basics. Okay. How do you explain that you are in a marriage already only to realize that the person you've decided you're going to spend the rest of your life with, their core values and your own core values are at variance, are incompatible? How do you explain that? That certain things that are core, fundamental to your existence are completely at variance with their core values, and you didn't realize that until you said I do, and then you're not like you can know everything about a person. Are you trying to justify something or what? Listen, if you get into a marriage before you realize that your core values are not covered in that relationship, then may I suggest to you that you're lazy. No, it may sound harsh, but somebody needed to tell you that you're lazy. You're not just lazy. Your laziness is pregnant. Your laziness is amazing. Your laziness is incredible. Mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, psychologically, technically. In any sense, you are lazy. Nobody does that. No, nobody does that. So the first thing to put in their proper perspective, the perspectives before you step into a permanent relationship, is to define values. Is to define core values. Core values are the lifestyles upon which your life, your future, your vision goal, your life purpose depend. Those are values that will sustain them. Those are values that will take you through the journey. Those are things you can't do without. And those are non-negotiables. So before you get into stuff with people, you're supposed to have your values, your expectations penciled out in its clearest terms in your heart. You're supposed to know them at your fingertips. And as soon as you go into relationships, those are the first things you're on the lookout for. This is so important, and it is critical. It is why our conversation starter, our question that we looked at today on the platform is so important. We asked a question to all them participants on the platform, and we were like, what is that thing that is the most important to you in a relationship? What do you value most in a relationship? That's what we talked about. What do you value most in a relationship? Now, this is so important because there has to be expectations. And you can't build something on nothing. There has to be expectations. And they got to be built on something. What are your belief systems? And what are the belief systems of this person? What are your ideologies? And I keep telling people, listen, when you get married to people, or when you go into a relationship with people, matter of fact, you're not getting married to a lady or a guy. You're not getting married to boobs and butts and shapes and figures and biceps and triceps and 6 packs and 7 packs. That's not what you're getting married to. Listen, you're not getting married to colors and heights and all kinds of stuff. You are when you get married to somebody, you're getting married to an ideology. You're getting married to a philosophy. You're getting married to a worldview. You're getting married to a mindset. And it doesn't make sense that you are going into something that you intend to be permanent, and you can't figure out what the person's mindset is on basics, on fundamentals. Don't do that. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Values, there must be things that are key to you. Listen, values are more important than feelings. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to live with them feelings. You're going to be faced with values, their absence or their presence. And for crying out loud, you want to define what you stand for from the onset. And this is not about, you want to ask them what they value. They want to ask you what you value. And then if what you value is not what they value, it's okay. It's a question of time. Somebody who values what they value will find them. And somebody who values what you value will find you. Ain't nothing wrong with them, and then nothing is wrong with you. It's just that you don't have the same values. And so it's okay to go to your separate ways. But you must know what those values are. And you don't let your feelings be cloud the importance of values. You don't let your feelings mess with that. Because oftentimes, when you let your feelings get wild, that's the problem. The problem I have with feelings is that there is, and that's why I keep saying love is an abnormal behavior. Because once you get your feelings go wild, you begin to ignore essentials. You begin to give attention to the urgent when they're not important. But once you are in your right mind, there is a sense in which you make sure and insist that things are put in the right. I think sometimes what we deceive ourselves with is we think that we have what it takes to change people. I don't know where we get that philosophy from. Well, you can't change nobody. The truth about people, their ideologies and their belief systems is that, and of course, not having an ideology is an ideology by itself. I hope you know that. The challenge with those things is that once you don't accept people and accept their belief systems and accept their values, it shows. They know by your statement, by your body language, by everything that you do, your gestures. Once that begins to flow from you in their direction, there is an automated mode that they take that has to do with self-defense. They move into survival mode and become resistant. And if they were a 3 of 10 when it comes to your value scaling, once they sense that resistance, unintentionally, they become a 2 of 10. They become a 0 of 10. They get worse by the day. You can't change nobody. You're going to only meet resistance and frustrations and be angry with yourself. If at all you like to be angry with yourself. Oftentimes we get angry with every other person except ourselves. Values are so important. You must answer the simple question. What is it that qualifies people for your friendship? What is it that must be, that is the criteria, that is the standard? What is it that makes people qualify to come into your space, come into your circle of influence, come into your friendship? You must have standards. Because if you don't have standards, then it's a problem. Value means you have convictions. Value means you have a way of life. Value means you have a worldview. Value means you have what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And that is what brings us to the place of boundaries. Now, how do you do life without defined boundaries? Listen, it's your responsibility about how people treat you. The way people treat you, the way people handle your stuff, the way people mess with you, the way people come into your space, what they do in that space, how long they stay in that space, how they mess with you, is largely your responsibility. Nobody is going to be blamed for what they're doing in your life and in your space. Why? It's your responsibility to teach people how to treat you. And the three ways you do that is simple. Number one, you teach people how to treat you by what you allow, or by what you disallow. So you teach people how to treat you by what you allow. You teach people how to treat you by what you stop. But the third one is also very important. You teach people how to treat you by what you reinforce. So if you allow this, but people don't want it, you reinforce it. If you stop a particular lifestyle or behavior and people insist on doing it, you stop them, you reprimand them, you send them out. You want them out, you excuse them. You reinforce it, otherwise they take it for granted. Listen, how people treat you is largely a function of your definitions and your priorities. So the question is, what do you value most in a relationship? Excuse me, do you have values at all? They're important. Someone on the platform said, what he values most is respect. And for crying out loud, this is important for every man. He said that is what he interprets as love. Respect is his definition for love. Respect. I remember interfacing with a lady who came around for counseling, and then she wanted assistance as to why her marriage was going down. And I was listening to her, and then she narrated all her stuff. And then as she was going, I was picking vital information from what she was saying that gave me the impression that this woman was disrespectful to her husband. And I was like, do you think you're respectful to your husband? She said she does. And she does, seriously. But I'm saying, but from all you're saying, your husband is saying that you're disrespectful to him. What's your definition of respect? She told me. What's his definition of respect? She said she wouldn't know. I said, okay. What are these three things? There could be two, there could be one, there could be four, there could be five. What are those things your husband keep insisting that you must stop doing? He does not permit you to do. He doesn't want you to do. He wants you to stop them, and you have refused to stop them. You're not giving attention to those priorities of his. What are they? She outlined them. I said, how in the world do you come to the conclusion that you respect a person whose instructions you don't obey, whose demand you don't give attention to, whose priorities you disrespect? How do you explain that kind of respect? Listen, you can't respect somebody in your own terms. It's part of the love languages. You can only love people in their language. Otherwise, you will be spent, completely exhausted, and yet you're not making sense. They're walking out of you. They're done with you. They can take none of this no more. And yet you are done. You are expended. You are spent. Nothing left to give again. And yet you're not making sense to nobody. Why? You're trying to love people in your language. You're trying to respect people based on your definition of what respect is. And that's not going to work. If you plan to respect people, you must respect them based on what they think respect is. This is so profound. And that's why conversations are so critical. They're so fundamental. We must sit down and talk. The only way to know what people's values are, talk about it, share. Use the questions we brought up on the platform as conversation starters. As you start discussing, the reason you ask these questions is that they engender conversations. The beauty about conversations is that they create connection. The beauty about connection is that it lets you into people's value system and then positions you to make appropriate decisions. This is so profound. Somebody else here says our core value is honesty. Now, oftentimes when people put core values in place, core values come because of people's experiences, their pains in the past. And so they become sensitive to those areas. And so everyone you see in this life is either running away from something, pain, or running into something, joy, peace, prosperity, progress. And so once you represent pain for most people, they run away from you because they've had a lot of that in their past. When you represent prosperity, joy, peace, people gravitate towards you because they're looking for that. They've not had that kind of experience all their lives, and they want that kind of experience. And when somebody says our value is honesty, you want to pay attention to it. Because she's running from something, she's running into something. The next reason why people put values in place, or where values emanate from, convictions. Built up over time, based on knowledge, based on perspective. It is knowledge and perspectives that graduate into convictions. What it is that you're willing to die for. You're willing to be spent for. That's a conviction. These things have to be there. I'm amazed how people have incredible convictions about things that don't matter, and have no conviction about things that matter. Have you seen people fight because of Chelsea and Manchester United? And yet they can't stand up and defend their homes, stand up and fight the way they fight for those inconsequentials. They can stand up and fight for their beliefs, fight for their faith, fight for their values, fight for their loved ones. Values are important, and they form the basis for the decisions we make when it comes to lifetime relationships. I'm afraid I gotta go. I gotta get back to class. I'll see you again as soon as I can. Thank you so much for being